Welcome along to NUFC with me, Steve Wraith, Supermac and Gibbo. Hi, lads.
Nice to see
Hi,
you,
Steve. Hi, John.
Hi, mate.
Good to see you. Well, as always, plenty to talk about with regards to Newcastle United. Gibbo, you had a little sabbatical last week, which we didn't begrudge. Me and Malcolm kept the home fires burning.
I knew you would.
Just an opportunity, really, for you to pay your tribute to Jack Charlton.
Yeah. I mean, a terrific man, a Geordie through and through, and that's, I think, above everything, we're delighted that he was ours. But he was so loved by so many people in so many places. Obviously, Leeds, where he played about 700 games, one club man, 23 years, won every domestic honour that was possible with England. The height, the pinnacle of anybody's career, World Cup winner, the only time we won the World Cup, went into management, revered in Middlesbrough, first job, took Middlesbrough back to the promised land of the top flight football, revived the career totally of Alan Foggen, who had been a first cup winner with Newcastle and become a big star again, scoring all the goals at Borough. Came to Newcastle, where maybe it didn't happen in his one season as manager, but the Geordies will always love him because he was a Newcastle United fan from cradle to grave, and that always wins Geordie hearts. And he was always that throughout his life. And then, of course, he went on to Republic of Ireland, where, I mean, to this day, he's the most revered football manager they've ever had, because they start getting to global finals, World Cups and European Championships, which they'd never been to in their life. And I mean, he was a shrewd man, was our Jack. He never bought a drink in Ireland because they loved him so much. He used to go into the local pub and say, just put it on a slate and I'll pay at the end of the night. So they totted it all up on a slate. Then at the end of the night, he'd give them a cheque for the full amount, knowing that the barman was so thrilled to have him in his pub, he'd frame it behind the bar and put it behind the bar. So the cheque was never cashed. So it was a freebie night. And that's how revered he was by the people over there. And I think, you know, it come from football royalty. The Milburn clan was exactly that. I mean, all the brothers, Sissy's mum, all our four brothers played in the Football League. Jackie Milburn become the superstar of the Milburn clan with Newcastle United in England. Never thought we'd get better than that. And then we get Bobby and Jack Charlton playing World Cup finals. So it was a wonderful family. And his cleverness, I mean, he often said Bobby was the talented one. Bobby could play, I couldn't play, but I knew how to stop people from playing. And that was true, and there was room for both of them. But I think his cleverness was, as a manager, he was tactically very shrewd and very clever, especially if he took smaller sides with respect. I don't know, Newcastle United fans never quite took to him because they needed the flowing football that is traditional for Newcastle United. England might have been the same problem. But take Middlesbrough in the second division, take Sheffield Wednesday, take Republic of Ireland going in against Italy in the Giants, and he was very clever. I mean, the way he used Foggen when Middlesbrough won promotion, he played the withdrawn centre forward. We think that is a new thing now that has just been invented. No, it wasn't. Jack did it. He had his withdrawn centre forward, Foggen running from midfield beyond where the centre forward would be. And he scored 19 goals in the season that went up and 16 the next season. And he wasn't even a striker. He was really a midfield player or winger. So a man with the utmost respect throughout the world, not just in this country, in the Republic of Ireland, but throughout the world. And you know what's great about that? He's one of us. He was a Geordie.
Yeah. Malcolm, there's been a few things launched online I've seen over the last few days. People, you know, trying to get fundraisers going for a statue of Jack up in Ashington. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's a great idea. Absolutely. Yes. Ashington really has had three great people come out of it. Jackie Milburn, Jackie Charlton and Bobby Charlton. Can't think of anybody else. So, you know, but and Jackie's got his statue in Newcastle. I'm sure that if Ashington don't get in first, Leeds certainly will.
Yeah, you're right there, Malcolm. And I think it's rather appropriate that Leeds United, who have been outside of the Premier League for 16 long years, in the year that they lose two of the heroes that they've lost are both Geordie lads, which is Norman Hunter and Jack Joelinton. And it's wonder there was Trevor Cherry as well, but the two Geordie lads, it's a fitting tribute to them, the clubs they adored, both Hunter and Joelinton, both of whom were Newcastle United fans, but signed for Leeds. It's a wonderful thing that Leeds have gone up in that season.
Sure, and they were the two Leeds players in the 1966 World Cup squad.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so yeah, I think in Ashington, yeah, I can think of a couple of others actually. Malcolm, people like Jimmy Adamson. Remember Jimmy Adamson?
Oh, yes, the manager.
He was born at Ashington. And Sess Irwin, that played for Sunderland.
The fullback.
Fullback, yeah.
He was from Ashington.
In a decent side. So we're knee deep in Ashington, lads, yeah. But, yeah, I mean, the two Jacks and Bobby are
I didn't realise that Jimmy Adamson was from the northeast. So that perhaps explains why Burnley was half full of Geordies.
They were Geordies. I mean, it
Burnley
was
side of the 70s.
I mean, the reason why they were, of course, is because Billy Elliott, that played for Sunderland, his best friend when he was in the Royal Navy was a fella called Jack Hickson, who was used to work for British Rail. And he persuaded Jack to do some scouting for Billy's club, which happened to be Burnley. And Jack's the bloke that filled the Burnley club full of Geordies, and of course found these great Geordies, ending up with Alan Shearer. But yeah, I would think a statue to Jackie in Ashington would be fabulous. And while at it, Steve, I think they may as well make it a double statue. You know that when you go down to Manchester United, they have Best Lawn, Charlton all in one statue. They may as well do a double statue with Jackie and Bobby, because Bobby deserves to be up there as well, I would suggest, as one of the greatest ever. And so do a double statue of the two Charlton brothers in the World Cup strips, if you like.
Yeah, great idea. Obviously today, I'm not sure whether you've seen the news. I know you have, John. Malcolm, the announcement this morning from Newcastle United. We don't get many, so I have to cherish them with...
Is cherish the right word there, Steve? Right.
Yeah, you cherish every word that Mike Ashley or Lee Charnley utters, don't you?
I do.
It could be the last one they make, hopefully. But yeah, they've announced this morning that FUN88 have, obviously increased the partnership with the club, which means that the logo FUN88 will remain on the front of Newcastle United strips. We also know that Puma will continue next year to provide the strip for the Newcastle United team. Meltdown isn't the word on social media. It caused, a complete firestorm this morning on things like Twitter and Facebook, with people saying, well, the deal's off. Do either of you believe the deal's off? Because this has been announced. My investigation led me to find that this deal was actually signed in January with FUN88, which was prior to PCP lodging the 17 million pound with Mike Ashley, and it's up to FUN88 when they decide to announce it. And of course, they've announced it at the end of the season, which is their choice, when the new strip will be worn against Liverpool with the logo on. I think we're having a little bit concerned about nothing here, lads.
I think you're absolutely right, Steve. I mean, the simple answer is, until the takeover is actually announced upon completion, business has to go on as usual at Newcastle United, even though we think that Ashley's actually jacked it all in and stuck the keys through the letterbox. It must keep ticking over, and it has been, in terms of, in an ideal world, They would appoint the new sponsors. They would decide whether Andy Carroll got a contract. They would decide whether Manquillo got a contract. They would decide who the transfer targets on for next season. But until the day comes where takeover is completed, business has to continue the way it does, and the incoming landlords have to accept what they get and the state of play on the very day they take over. So I don't think that it all indicates that the takeover won't happen. I think that remains exactly as it's remained for so long in the hands of the Premier League, who are trying to wring the dishcloth dry before they do anything one way or another. But it is getting to be, because it's now going to come, isn't it, lads? It's going to come. The answer is going to come at the end of the season, because it's going to come after Sunday now, I would suspect. But I don't think it's affected by the shirt sponsorship in the same way as the Andy Carroll and the Manquillo contracts happened, when really you could argue that any new owner should have decided that.
Sure, and in the contract of the deal, it would say that all sponsorships, etc., go within the whole package. So the current owner has to ensure that everything is there in place to hand over. So they couldn't have ignored this at all, John.
No. It's just the business as usual routine, and the exasperating thing about this hold-up on any takeover is that decisions will continue to be made. And what is frightening, Steve, is that once we get to Sunday and Monday morning, then decisions will be taken about summer player signings, etc., which will be fait accompli if and when the takeover goes through, because they will continue doing day-to-day business. So that is what's exasperating.
In a normal world, all of this would have been happening back in March, April and May. But because of COVID-19, it's all been so delayed. But business and life must go on. And to keep the deal alive, then they had to complete this bit of business with FUN88, just to keep the package in its original state.
100%, guys. I'm 100% with you. I can understand fans getting, upset.
Of course.
Because it has dragged on, and because it's been played out in the general public, and not by PCP or by Mike Ashley, but by the media, and because Richard Masters has been doorstepped in various interviews and been non-committal, if you like. It just adds fuel to the fire, doesn't it?
Yeah,
sure,
absolutely. I mean, in defence of the media, and there's been huge speculation, but it's because fans want to know what's happening and demanding what's happening. So it's staying in the public eye. And it is natural that the nerves of every fan will be jangling with every day that passes without a decision being made. And particularly so when so many are anxious to see the back of Mike Ashley. And this is the back of Mike Ashley. And if it doesn't happen, he may well still go, and he most certainly wants to go, but we've got to go through this long, arduous process of doing a deal between Ashley and the new owner and then setting it up to the Premier League yet again. So we need this one to go through, but we've been saying that for so long. But I don't think today's announcement adversely affects the situation one iota.
With it having been with the Premier League for so long now, do you not think that perhaps they could have made an interim statement just to let everybody know what the state of play is?
I mean, in an ideal world, Malcolm, yes. But I think when there's a confidentiality clause from day one, that the minute you lodge it with the Premier League, there's a confidentiality clause to both the parties, Ashley and the buyers, that they just won't do that. We're so frustrated. We need them to, but
could they not have said, we will be giving our decision after the last game of the season?
They could have said that, but they could have equally told the truth and said, we will give our decision after we've belted the Saudis over the head until they've done something about the piracy, because that's the simple answer why and how long's a piece of string? They didn't know whether that was going to be before the season, after the season, sometime never.
Moving on from FUN88, we've had some interesting words from Joelinton, who obviously wears the number 9.
Have we?
Yes. In an interview in the Evening Chronicle, John.
Yes.
Basically, in a nutshell, he said that the Premier League is the best competition in the world. It's where the best players play. You have the best teams, the best managers. So it was definitely a challenge coming into the Premier League, which is so competitive and every game is so disputed. But I knew it would be difficult when I came here, and I'm happy for the experience and the possibility to settle in and adapt. And definitely there will be improvements next season. That's what I hope for, and that's what I'm working hard towards, and I'm very happy. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but that's always been the case in my career. I've always worked hard to do well. Malcolm, encouraging words from Joelinton or just player flannel?
Yeah, it's something to wash your face with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think he's probably I think he's a lovely lad beneath it all, a lovely lad, and it's probably all true that he's desperate to do well, etc., etc. But I just hope that there's going to be something there, because what we've seen so far has been quite depressing. And you know, when he says he's working hard, bless him, and I suspect he is, and when we hear that the coaches are working hard with him, my one answer to both those statements is, do you actually have to coach somebody on how to run into the penalty box to get a finish? Because it's that part of his game above all others, the willingness to go where it hurts to put the ball in the back of the net, which has been missing out of Joelinton's game. And you know, is he an outside left instead of a centre forward? Well,
John,
all we know, he's not a centre forward.
John, as you're speaking, something came to me from back in the 70s, and those like Steve and younger viewers at the moment probably won't know what we're talking about, but I see a great comparison between Joelinton and a lad called Alex Bruce.
Yeah, I remember.
Now, do you remember him? He
no
was,
relation
he
to
was
Steve,
a
by the
Scots
way.
lad who was bought by Joe Harvey, I think.
Yeah.
From Preston North End.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Little ginger kid.
Yes. And he was a sort of, we didn't know whether he was an attacking midfielder or a forward who dropped very deep, you know, and nobody could work out how to play with him or how to support him. And in the end, he became almost a pariah on the training ground because he just couldn't fit in one way or the other. And I'm seeing great similarities between that instance and with Joelinton now. Joelinton just doesn't look to me as if he's fitting in any way, because people don't know how to play with him.
The only way he's fitting into the Newcastle side is that he fits in beautifully with a load of players that don't score goals. We haven't got a natural goal scorer in the side.
That's right, but you create relationships with those who are in the side with you. I had a terrific relationship with John Tudor, but in turn, the pair of us, we had a terrific relationship with Stuart Barraclough.
Yeah.
So we knew how he delivered the ball. We knew when to make the runs, knowing what Stuart was going to be sending into the penalty area. And John and I, we could cause havoc in an 18-yard box. because you know what the player is capable of, and he's going to be consistent in delivering that. How does anybody play with Joelinton? You know, who looks to make a relationship with him? Is it another forward, or because you watch Dwight Gale and Joelinton, I don't think have had any communication on a pitch. When they're on the pitch together, they don't look at each other. They don't seem to link up with each other. So Joelinton isn't forming a partnership with the other forward. And do you see him creating anything with the guys in the middle of the field? I see nothing at all. So what Newcastle are sending on the pitch is a team of 10 plus Joelinton.
Yeah. No, I don't think he'll get any argument.
He's a complete outsider. He doesn't know how to take part together with people. And he's an individual in a team sport, and he's just not fitting in whatsoever.
Another man not fitting in at all, mainly due to the fact that he's always injured, is Andy Carroll. And I've got to ask you, John and Malcolm, about this one. Obviously, Newcastle are really struggling for the game against Brighton and subsequently the match against Liverpool, which is our final match of the season, with the injury list. Centre-halves, of course, are dropping like flies. And I did see an article in the Chronicle about Andy Carroll potentially being earmarked for a role as centre-half, something which I think he would relish, he said. So, John, surely tell me we're not starting tonight's game with Andy Carroll playing at the back.
Well, I don't. Will we start with Andy Carroll playing anyway? Bless him, with all his injuries, it's something to get him on the field alone these days. I know quite seriously what he's talking about, because on the odd occasion when we've been under the cosh and Andy's either started the game or gone on his sub, he's sometimes been our best defender at set pieces when he's gone back to head the ball at least 50 yards up the field. But I've never been a great lover of centre forwards converting to centre halves, because to do that for an hour and a half takes some doing. And I think Andy, God bless him for being willing to do it, but let him concentrate on what he's supposed to be doing at the other end of the field and see if he can get himself a goal in the next 2 games before the season's over. Otherwise, it'll be, whatever it is, 8 years since his last Newcastle goal, going into next season when, of course, he's got his contract extension. But I mean, you know, we have a little bit of a smile about, say, Joelinton and Andy Carroll and the lack of goals, but the general lack of goals, and we've said this time and time again, is absolutely frightening. We're going into this week, the last 2 games of the season, the top scorer in the Premier League's John Joe Shelby with 6. John Joe Shelby, who's not an attacker and often playing, if you like, on the centre-half's toes. And overall, the top scorer is Almiron with 8, who is the only bloke who possibly will get into double figures this season if he can get 2 more. But even then, that would be in every competition. He's only got 4 Premier League goals as Almiron. So we've got nobody anywhere near double figures in the league. And that is frightening. That is really frightening and has to be put right this summer. Quite how we do it might depend on whether we have new owners or how much money or whatever. But, you know, chucking money at it, well, if we're truthful and we love Almiron, but we spent £60 million on Joelinton and Almiron, and they're included in this batch of players this season that can't reach double figures.
Yeah, my centre-half position for Andy Carroll tonight, could you see it?
I think it's an utter waste. That if you want to win a game, then you play Andy Carroll up front, Dwight Gale off of Andy Carroll, and you've got a terrific partnership. It would be wonderful if Andy Carroll could sort of guarantee 25 or 30 games a season. but it doesn't appear as if he's ever going to be fit enough to be able to do that. But whilst he's there, make the most of him in his natural position. And he is and he frightens centre halves. And admittedly, when he goes back and defends in the area on set pieces, he frightens their centre forwards as well. But there's no point in having him back there and leave Dwight Gale unaccompanied. Dwight Gale is screaming out for a big target man, if you like, to play alongside of him. And if that were the situation, Dwight Gale, he would be scoring 25 goals a season. Of that, I'm convinced.
Yeah. I'm not sure whether you fancy a laugh, lads. We'll have a few on this show. It has to be said throughout the season. Dan Ballon in Spain, who reported yesterday that Newcastle United's prospective new owners wanted to sign Karim Benzema, have now come out with the even more ludicrous claim that we're going to make Cristiano Ronaldo our first signing under the new Saudi-owned Newcastle project. John, should I go and get me new Newcastle top with FUN88 on with Ronaldo on?
I mean, it really is absolutely crazy. I think that we could start with Ronaldo and Messi, and maybe Neymar could play out wide, just to add a little bit more to it. And
why not play Benzema at centre half as well?
Uncle Tom Cubley could come in at the back. I mean, it is really getting to be Fantasy Island stuff, isn't it? I mean, is somebody having a laugh, as they say? Really is absolutely crazy. I mean, if we got them, we'd probably play Ronaldo centre half and Neymar right back, and somebody's an overlapping left wing back. No, I would like to stay in the land of the living if we could, Steve.
Malcolm, what do you think Cristiano Ronaldo would make of Steve Bruce's tactics?
Cristiano Ronaldo's English is probably better than Steve Bruce's. More understandable, anyway. I can't even imagine that scenario, to be honest, Steve. It just won't happen.
What about that? What about Cristiano that wonderful Ronaldo thing, Steve? What about that wonderful thing where Steve Bruce has just said that Potter's tactics are fascinating?
Yeah. Well, let's come on to that. It's
fascinating, did you say, John?
Yes.
Sorry?
Did you say fascinating?
Yeah.
You said fascinating. That was the word. Yes.
That was the word.
I'll take you through it. Actually, yeah. I mean, basically, in the evening, obviously they've gone through the talk that Steve Bruce gave yesterday with the written press. And he was quite complimentary about Graham Potter's tactics at Brighton. Now, I wasn't really sure where he was coming from with this. It did seem a strange thing to say to somebody ahead of a game in the Premier League. But quite clearly, he said that he was impressed with the tactics down at the Amex Stadium at Brighton in the correspondent fixture. He called them fascinating. That was what he called them. So,
do you know what? I mean, it sounds to me like he's waving a verbal white flag.
But I mean, the tactics are so fascinating that they have been in a greater danger of going down this season than us, because they've been, well, down the bottom for so long. Has he improved results more than Chris Hughton's results at Brighton? I suspect not. And I'm much more concerned about Steve having the answer to the fascinating tactics of Potter than just basking in looking at the fascinating tactics. We need an answer to those tonight. And quite frankly, you know what tonight's game is? It's a game between two sides, one can't and the other dent. Brighton have just lost their last three home games, albeit against top quality opposition.
Yeah,
they lost 3-0.
But their tactics were fascinating, John.
They were. I mean, obviously, these managers found them fascinating, Malcolm. They lost to Manchester United 3-0, who were on this huge run until the cup. this week. They lost to Liverpool 3-1, the champions, and they lost to Man City 5-0. So when we say they've lost the last 3 home games, yes, they have, but against quality opposition. And I would suggest we aren't quite as good as Manchester United, Liverpool, or Manchester City. But equally, we are going into the game with our 3 defeats on the bounce. And, you know, for me, this week is about one thing. We say we've got nothing to play for, and that's true in terms of safety. But we don't want to finish this season with 5 defeats on the bounce. And if we lost to Brighton in Liverpool, that would be the record that would finish the season. And we must avoid that. And the best way of doing it is to get a result tonight. And yes, while we've said, and you're right, Steve, that we've had all these injuries to central defenders, and it is horrendous. There's no question about that whatsoever. But for me, we've got to remember that before these guys got injured, there were so many individual mistakes being made at the back. For example, we played quite well against Spurs for a while, but then we dropped clanger after clanger. Shaw's dropped clangers, Ferdinand's dropped clangers, Kraft's dropped clangers, Joelinton's dropped clangers, senior defenders. So while the centre-halves out tonight, we have been struggling with individual mistakes by that back line, be it 4 or 5, which tells us that even if everybody's fit, we need defenders that can concentrate for 90 minutes, the same way as we need somebody to stick the ball in at the other end. Yes, tonight is rough, but if we had them all fit, can we guarantee that all these people will be able to get to 90 minutes without dropping the simplest of clanger?
Yeah, what I found bizarre about the squad that was announced as well was, and this one will make you chuckle, was that Steve Bruce had added Paul Dummett to his list of doubts for Monday. Although he was actually ineligible to play, as we know, because he was omitted from the 25-man Premier League squad.
Yes, he was, but it's another number, another name to add and bump up the injured list. All these fellas aren't available, and neither's the tea lady, incidentally, because she can't travel because of coronavirus. They won't take everybody, and then there's the kit man. There's somebody. Yeah, I mean, no, I'm making light of it. The injury list is horrendous, but let us not come the end of the season allow that to paper over the cracks, because some of the mistakes we have been watching during the last 3 defeats that Newcastle have had against Man City, Watford and Spurs were made by senior defenders, and that is very, very worrying.
Malcolm, we've got a defensive crisis. We do have a young man called Kel Watts, who is a centre-half at the club, one of our under-21s. He's eligible to play. Against Brighton, would you give him the opportunity? Would you give the lad his debut?
Absolutely, yes. You know, now is the perfect opportunity to blood the young man, give him a taste of what it's about, and the step up in class from playing reserve team football to actually playing Premiership football. It's huge. They've got to experience it, and some take to it like a duck to water. And so, if you don't put him in the side, you'll never know. And I'm all for giving kids a chance. I really am. And yeah, I'd love to see him play tonight. And who knows, we might have a superstar in the making.
Yeah, John, would you like to see the young lad get a chance tonight?
Yes, I would, because all we're going to do is regurgitate what we've had before. And even with the boys out that's injured, what's the alternatives? Fernandez and Kraft. Well, Fernandez is a centre-half, so leave him there, although he has looked very tired and leggy and has been vulnerable to getting taken recently. But Kraft has enough problem playing at right back without playing right side centre-half. So, yeah, by all means, give the kid an opportunity. And if you're going to pick a match for him, Brighton is a better match to blood him in than Liverpool would be with their 3 forwards on Sunday. So it would be an opportunity. And I think it would be good. He has played lower down the leagues this season. He's been on loan to a couple of clubs, hasn't he? But the step up, as Malcolm's saying, from playing League One or League Two, and then under 23 football is enormous. But yes, give the lad a chance, and if you're going to do so, this is the match. Let us see what the progress is that the young lad's making.
Right. Also, John, that there are a lot of players in the reserves, in the under 23s, and etc. They need to see one of them.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, being turned out in the first team, so that they know that the door is open.
Yeah.
If they're really good enough, the door is open for them to make it into the first team. And if players aren't getting through, then either it will depress them, it will get right on top of them, so that they don't show form, and also I've found when managing that when you're looking to sign schoolboys or whatever, if you've got a really good schoolboy in front of you, if you say, have a look at him, and him, they've all come through the youth side and they're now in the first team. That gives an incentive to the schoolboy to sign for your club. And so when a young man comes through into the first team and does well, it goes all the way through, it spreads all around the club, and it makes it a lot easier for scouts to do their job as well.
Yeah, 100%. I've just got to ask you about the situation at Watford. Bizarre, lads, is you want to describe it. We've now seen them sack 3 managers in one season, and not quite safe yet, it has to be said. Yet they sacked Nigel Pearson with 2 games to go. I've never known anything like it.
It's incredible. Would you alert Matty Longstaff to that, because he's going to Udinese, who's owned by the same people as Watford. So perhaps he'd be better off staying here. It is absolutely, totally and utterly bizarre. And Pearson was carrying the players with him as well. The players have been decimated by the fact that he's gone. I know he's a volatile character, etc., but the people that own Watford are absolutely incredible. Another one, going off totally the tangent, I sat here and watched Huddersfield absolutely take West Brom apart and beat them and really put West Brom into the playoffs, until Brentford then the next night made a mess of it. But Huddersfield then sacked their manager the next day after they've got this amazing result against West Brom.
Wasn't that bizarre?
I mean, it beggars belief where you're really going with some of these decisions. And I mean, it was just the game before West Ham when Watford turned us over, and Pearson almost guaranteed them staying up with that result. And then he gets a sack. What do they intend to achieve in the next 2 games?
Sure.
Or in the start, 3 managers next season? The whole of this family's got a history of turning over managers like that. I think the biggest recent appointment, the longest, is Gianfranco Zola, who was only about 500 days. It's quite stupendous.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It seems that there had been an argument between the manager and the chairman
about the manner of losing at West Ham, man.
That's right. At the same time, quite recently, Sean Dyche at Burnley, he's had an argument with his board.
Absolutely right, Malcolm. Yeah.
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 But they're able to overcome that, and look at Burnley. They really are doing way beyond themselves. You know, it might have Sean Dyche thinking, well, is my future here or do I look elsewhere? But you get the season played. And for Watford to do it with 2 games to go when they are still in danger of being relegated, it is utter stupidity and madness. It really is.
A couple of other bits of local news I just wanted to bring up with you before we get our predictions for tonight's game. Congratulations have to go to your old team, Gateshead, John.
Yes.
Job well done. Another step towards the National League. You know, they're into the semi-finals, I believe, now, which must be pleasing for you.
Oh, I was thrilled to bits. I'm still club president there, and I was in touch with Neil Pinkerton and chatted to him before the game, the Gateshead chairman, who was part of the fan group that rescued them. And I sent him a message last night when he was on his way home, just saying, wow, well done, guys. Because it's Mike Williamson again, who played, 150 league games for us at Newcastle. Mm-hmm. It's a wonderful thing for Gateshead because they lost their status in the conference, not through bad results on the pitch, they were about midway in the table, but disgraceful ownership, which was punished because of the way the club had been run, and rightly so. But when you punish the owners, you know, you're also punishing the players and the fans, because they both suffered by Gateshead's relegation. And if they can somehow put it right, they've got to go to Boston on Saturday and then play in the final, which could be against York City and Steve Watson, who managed Gateshead before Williamson took over. If it's Steve Watson v Mike Williamson in the final of the playoffs, fabulous. And I hope it is that. But I wish Gateshead everything they wish themselves. They deserve a bit of luck. They've earned a bit of luck. And that was a terrific result yesterday.
Yeah, they certainly do deserve that bit of luck, John, I have to say. This weekend I was looking back at my ex-clubs, my 4 league clubs that I was with. Arsenal have just reached the FA Cup final.
Yeah.
And have got themselves brilliantly into the situation where they've got a home game to win with Charlton, who are on the same number of points, having to go to Leeds in the last game of the season. And so there's every chance that Luton might be able to stay up.
Against all the odds initially, Malcolm, yeah.
Yeah, and Fulham look as if they could be coming back into the Premiership. It might possibly, with West Brom having had a bad result, Brentford having had a bad result, that Fulham could make it the first asking.
So when you're on about how well your clubs are doing, are you suggesting that Newcastle United are going to rip Brighton and Liverpool apart to finish in a magnificent 13th or 14th position? Are you building up to this, Malcolm?
John, I am allowed to hope.
Got to ask you about Sunderland, lads. I mean, you know, we laugh because they're our rivals, and you know, but they are in complete disarray at the moment, aren't they? With fans having meetings with, you know, Stuart Donald and co, and then, you know, only a matter of hours later, Stuart Donald resigns. You know, there seems to be so much of a soap opera down at the Stadium of Light. It's incredible, isn't it? How the mighty has fallen, I suppose.
Yeah, you know, it makes you wonder that you know, should the football authorities, the EFL, you know, should they sort of hold a steward's inquiry as to what's going on there? You know, it's been a couple of other clubs as well this season. Bury, for example, which was an absolute tragedy. What went on there, and Sunderland's not far off that. You know,
I mean, it has. It's shocking what's happened down there. And I mean, the fans mustn't be able to believe it. They're going to go into the 3rd season in the 3rd tier of English football, which is absolutely...
John, it doesn't seem that long ago. Peter Reid was the manager, and they finished 7th in the Premier League 2 seasons in a row.
Oh, that's absolutely true. But I mean, if we were looking next season and I said to you, well, there'll be a return of North East derbies, and we consider that it could be Middlesbrough v Sunderland in League One, it's quite incredible. I think Ashley is owner of the year in the Northeast.
You said that with a straight face as well.
I think we should
a straight face there, John. Well done.
Get rid of Earl Grey on the top of the monument and put Mike Ashley up there as the best owner in this area.
We'll still do it down so we can all throw the rotten fruit off the Barra at him, though. Yeah, that's the only deal on that. Tonight, 6 o'clock kickoff live on Sky Sports and Freeview and the Pick channel, also available on Sky One. Brighton versus Newcastle. Predictions, lads. Malcolm, yours first, please.
I really would like to see Newcastle really go at this one. I'm gonna take Newcastle to sneak it 2-1.
Well said, well said. I'm not going to be so ambitious, and I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. And I want, the big thing is that I want them to avoid defeat tonight, because if they get defeat tonight, it's 4 on the trot, and that could easily become 5 against Liverpool. And there's no way I want to spend my summer thinking about 5 defeats at the end of this season. So if it's going to be different, it's going to be tonight. But the way things are, it was a 1-1 up here, and I think it'll be a 1-1 down there.
I'm afraid I'm not as confident. I think Newcastle will get beat tonight. I'm going to go for a 2-0 defeat. Lads,
well done, Steve. Bloody hell, you're normally as optimistic as you can possibly get.
No, not with that team that we've got out there, lads. I think we're going to come a cropper, sadly. But lads, as always, it's been a pleasure. Good to have you on. Look forward to speaking to you again next week.
Yeah, take care, boys, and all the best to the people listening.
And to you, John, indeed. And yes, well done, everybody, for putting up with us.
Good stuff. And I'll be back tonight after the match with Malcolm, with Steve Hasty, and with Neil Mitchell, the Geordie dentist.